Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. You're watching COVID-19 India Fights Back. I'm Tina Jha. On this edition of the program, we are joined by a very special guest. We have with us Professor Randeep Guleria, Director at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. We will be talking on the program about the new strain of the COVID-19 virus, which has emerged in India. At least 20 people have tested positive of the virus. Besides, we'll also be talking about India's vaccination rollout plan, which in all probability is set to be rolled out early next year. So on these aspects and much more, we'll be taking the perspective of Professor Guleria, who's joining us on the program. Sir, thank you for joining us on Rajya Sabha TV. Let me begin by asking you first about the steady downward trend that India has been maintaining for the past several months now. According to the Union Health Ministry data, the daily recoveries have now outnumbered the daily new cases successively since the last 33 days. Now, what, according to you, are the factors that you would attribute to this sustained declining trend in India, sir?
So I think there has been a lot of hard work done by various government agencies and by the people of India in trying to make sure that they can break the transmission of the disease and take necessary steps so that the cases come down. When we started in February, March, we were not really aware of what this virus is all about. But over the last 8 to 10 months, a lot of work has been done both at a central level, at the state level. And because we've done a lot of testing, tracking, treating, and by that we've been able to break the chain of transmission, prevent infection from spreading from one person to the other. There has been a ramp up of testing. We are now doing 1 to 1.5 million tests a day. That has helped to be able to diagnose people with disease early and isolate them so that they don't infect the other people. By doing that, the number of cases has dramatically come down, and thereby now we are seeing a very consistent downward trend over the last many weeks, which is a very positive sign as far as the country is concerned. And the challenge now is to maintain this. And to do that, every citizen has to play his part so that we continue to maintain COVID-appropriate behavior. We continue to get ourselves tested if we have any flu-like symptoms so that the diagnosis is made early, we are isolated early, all the family members are quarantined or our close contacts are quarantined, and we don't let an increase in number of cases, we don't let a super spreading event to happen, and we don't allow a cluster to develop. If we are able to do that, then in the next few weeks, not only will our cases come down, we will have the vaccine also available, which will be very, very helpful.
Certainly. So in that aspect, sir, when we talk about maintaining COVID-appropriate behavior and taking all necessary precautions, what's come as a huge concern now is this new strain from the UK. 20 persons have been found with this particular strain in India now. How big a cause of worry should that be for us?
So first of all, we need to be vigilant, but it's not something that we really need to start panicking because the measures that we've talked about are the same. For any, even if it's a new strain, it has to spread to others through what we call human-to-human spread. And this strain also will spread through what we call droplet infection. If an infective person coughs and he's not covering his mouth, he's not wearing a mask, and if the other person is not wearing a mask, the infection will happen and it will spread. But if we all take COVID-appropriate behavior, everyone wears a mask, everyone maintains physical distancing, we avoid going to crowding places, we frequently wash our hands, then even if it's a new variant, we will be able to prevent it from spreading in our country, and therefore we will not have a surge in number of cases. At the same time, we need to be more vigilant, and therefore the government has set up the COVID-19 Genomic Consortium, that we will try and look at any event that happens which may cause a concern in terms of increasing number of cases, increasing hospitalization, and we should be able to pick up the new variant if it is happening or spreading in any part of our country, and we break the chain of transmission there and don't allow it to spread. So I think we need to work at multiple levels. At a citizen level, COVID-appropriate behavior. At the government level, aggressive testing and making sure that we pick up the strain if it is there in community and we don't allow it to spread further. And if we are able to do that, we will be able to maintain the downward trend in the number of cases.
But sir, given the highly contagious nature of this particular strain of the virus, and also looking at the New Year celebrations, which are to kick in just a day or two. Do you think we need to also change the method of our defense, or what we have been doing over the past few months should be enough to also deal with this particular strain of virus?
So, what is the difference between this strain and the other strain in terms of its infectiveness? We know that this strain is more infectious, but the way of spreading is the same: droplet infection through close contact and through fomites, that is, people touching surfaces and that getting infected. Why is it more infectious? That's because once the virus reaches an individual, very often the viral load is very little and it does not cause the infection in that individual. However, this new variant, once it reaches an individual, quickly enters into the cell, starts multiplying, and therefore is able to infect people more easily. And that is why the number of cases are increasing in UK, where this variant was found. If we are having good COVID appropriate behavior, then no matter what be the strain, it will not be able to spread from one person to the other. Therefore, the measures that we started with when this pandemic started become even more important right now in terms of masking, wearing a mask for everyone, even if you are asymptomatic, not creating crowds or not going to crowded places, especially like you mentioned during New Year's Eve, that we should avoid crowded places because they can, or not create crowded crowds because they can become super spreading events.
Yes.
Regularly wash our hands. And if we do that, I think we will continue to have a downward decline. This is a strain which can, once it reaches an individual, can enter the body much more in a much easier manner. Like someone put it, it's like if your body is like let's say a door, and the virus, the spike protein in the virus is like the key, and if the key goes into the lock and it fits in properly, you're able to open the door. Now this new variant, the key is better, and it can open the lock much more easily, and that is why the virus comes into the body much more easily and causes more infection. If we are able to prevent the virus from reaching the door by good COVID appropriate behavior, we will not get the infection. So we have to be very aggressive in now for the next few weeks having our COVID appropriate behavior. The reason why I keeps on stressing upon this is that we have reached a little bit of COVID fatigue, and many people have started having a little bit of laxity.
Yes.
What this variant has told us is that we cannot have that laxity if you want to continue to have a decline in the number of cases as we are seeing in our country.
So, sir, the spread of transmission is the same. Also help us understand, are the symptoms of the new strain also similar, or it can be identified by individuals themselves? Does it behave differently when a person gets this particular strain?
So again, it's important to understand this is still COVID-19. The virus is still the same, and this virus undergoes mutation regularly.
Yes.
I mean, the strain that started off as the pandemic, that is the one that started off in Wuhan, has changed many times, and it keeps on changing. Sometimes the change is only a scientific curiosity because it really makes no difference in terms of its infectiveness, in terms of its virulence, in terms of causing death and causing more severe disease or developing new symptoms. That is usually not the case. So what we are saying now is it's still COVID-19. The symptoms are exactly the same. The treatment strategy is exactly the same. And luckily, we are not even seeing a higher mortality or higher hospitalization. But the virus will evolve with time. This is what we call an RNA viruses. And RNA viruses, all of them mutate on a regular basis. So it's not something unexpected. But what has been observed and found is that this mutation makes the virus a little bit more infectious. And therefore, we have to be very, very careful because that could lead to increase in number of cases, especially when we have a susceptible population that can get infected.
Sure. So in this aspect, sir, tracking and testing has perhaps been one policy that India has strictly followed over the months. And this has perhaps also been a huge factor that has led to the declining trend as well. Now, what's concerning is that mutations, it said, can change parts of the virus that the testing kits use to confirm positive cases. If mutations continue to take place rapidly, will they also impact the testing pattern in the sense that they could after a while render the testing kits useless and then we are back to square one?
It's highly unlikely because the testing kits that are being used in India, we are looking at the presence of two genes in the kit, and that looks at these two genes present in the sample that you have to say that this is COVID-19. So it's very unlikely that that will happen. This is also being monitored, and if need be, the kits can be modified to pick up something else. But as of now, the new variant will be picked up by the tests that are available in our country. And like I said, we are looking at two parts of the two genes which have to be present before we say that this is COVID-19 infection. And therefore, the kits that we are using currently will still work, and we need not be worried about that the kit may not pick up the new variant.
All right, let's now talk about vaccinations, sir. We are all hopeful that early next year the vaccination plan will be rolled out and possibly the vaccines will be available very, very soon to us. As we speak, AstraZeneca has been approved by the UK and an expert committee meeting is underway currently. Do you see approval being granted to this particular vaccine anytime soon?
So the vaccine that is being produced by Serum Institute of India and is going to be, for which the approval is being sought from the regulators, is the same that AstraZeneca has got approval from the UK.
Yes.
And they have a large body of data, not only from India, but from other countries like Brazil, South Africa, and UK, looking both at the efficacy and the safety of the vaccine. So I think if they look at the entire data, not from India and from the other parts of the world, we will have robust data which may be able to satisfy the regulators that this vaccine is safe, we can give it to our population, it is efficacious, it will work. If that is sort of there and the regulators are satisfied, I'm very hopeful that within the next few days, the regulatory approval will come in as far as the vaccine is concerned. And then in a very short span of time, we will be able to start vaccinating our population based on our priority list.
So looking at the 3 vaccine candidates that have applied for emergency use authorization, which includes our indigenous COVID-19 vaccine, the Covaxin, which is being developed by Bharat Biotech in collaboration with the ICMR. So of these 3, Covishield, Covaxin and Pfizer, which one, according to you, will be more appropriate looking at the conditions in India?
So the 2 that you mentioned, the one which is being truly made in India by Bharat Biotech and ICMR, and the Serum Institute of India vaccine, which is in collaboration with Oxford and AstraZeneca, both would be very useful in India because for them, you need to have a temperature which is 2 to 8 degrees centigrade for storage and for transport. And that is easily available because in our universal immunization program, which India runs at a very large scale in terms of immunization of children and pregnant women, that is the cold chain that we maintain. And we have upscaled that cold chain. And because of that, these 2 vaccines can easily be delivered to the entire part of the country, both urban and rural areas and even in remote parts. Therefore, I think these 2 vaccine candidates would be very useful in our country and for a large number of developing world also, because that is what is possible. These vaccines, therefore, can be kept in a simple fridge. The Pfizer vaccine has to be kept at minus 70 degrees centigrade, and that really needs a huge setup because that is needing a dry ice to transport and a lot of other things. That is not going to be practical on a large scale in a country like India. It's not going to be cost effective. And therefore, in my mind, what we will actually roll out in the first few months as the vaccination program starts would be the Serum Institute of India vaccine, followed by the Bharat Biotech vaccine.
Sure. So we seem to be preparing also ourselves for the vaccine plan that is to be rolled out early next year in all probability. Sir, but do you see any kind of challenges in the vaccination plan looking at the larger population that we have and of course the diverse society that we live in? What kind of challenges do you see in our vaccination drive going forward?
So I think there were many challenges, and that's why the government of India formed the NEGVAC, the committee which to really address these challenges, whether it be maintaining the cold chain, whether it be having stores where the vaccine could be stored in each state, whether we have to training enough vaccinators to give the vaccine, having enough syringes and needles so that the vaccine could be given, and then monitoring individuals for any side effects and having a plan in place in case someone had a serious side effect at just after the injection. All of that has been put in place. We've just had dry run also done in 4 states to make sure that none of the entire process there is any problem in the process, and whatever learnings have been there from this dry run will be incorporated into the program, so that once the vaccine is rolled out, it can really the program can work smoothly. The government has started a digital platform, an app also by the name of CoWIN, so that both the beneficiaries who will get the vaccine get an SMS. They know where they have to come, what time they have to come, and the overall mechanism of the vaccine coming from the manufacturers to the storage site using the cold chain, and from the storage site being distributed to each of the sites where the vaccination has to be given is worked out and done in a seamless manner. I think a lot of work has been done. But the second challenge that we have is to motivate people to come forward and get themselves vaccinated. The infodemic which has happened because of COVID-19 sometimes creates a lot of rumors leading to vaccine hesitancy among the general populations, many of them
Yes.
for various reasons, which may be linked to religion, may be linked to fear, and maybe linked to misconception. People sometimes feel that maybe this vaccine may cause more side effects, it's not safe. But I would just like to tell everyone that the data that we've seen, not only from India, but global data for these vaccines is very, very reassuring. They're very safe vaccines. And at the same time, the efficacy data is also there. And if we have to get over this pandemic and move forward towards a new normal life, we will have to make sure that everyone gets vaccinated. Otherwise, we will not be able to break the chain of transmission as far as this disease is concerned, and also not be able to decrease the mortality among the high risk groups, especially our elderly population.
Definitely. Vaccine hesitancy is something that we need to be really worried about, because also looking at the low death rate that India has maintained as far as COVID-19 is concerned, a lot of people may not be very keen on getting the vaccine dose for COVID-19 as well. So on that front, sir, what needs to be done? What kind of awareness needs to be spread among people, and what really should we be looking at?
So I think there is now a need for everyone, and that means prominent physicians, even other prominent personalities, and even religious leaders to come forward and encourage individuals and explain to them that the vaccine is safe. We must all come together and get it. We have to overcome and answer all the doubts that people have, clarify them in a scientific manner, and build confidence in the general public that these vaccines are safe, they should come forward and take it, and that it will really help in decreasing the number of cases in our country. It will help them to come back to the normal life that they were used to before COVID struck the country and the world. So if we have to try and reach that normal life that we were used to, we will have to be able to vaccinate a sufficient number of people so that the virus cannot spread in the community and people's lives are saved, and they don't really land up in hospital or having serious illness.
Another concern, sir, among people is, because normally vaccination procedure, developing vaccines is a long drawn procedure. But with the manner in which all of these vaccines have been being developed in less than a year, people have this perception that the procedures have been rushed through. So how can that notion be people need to be reassured that the vaccines are safe, and also on their efficacy, how can people be reassured?
So I think it's not that the vaccine has been rushed through. The vaccine platform that we're talking of has been going on, or the research has been going on for many years. For the MERS coronavirus, for Ebola, and even before that, a lot of researchers were working on new vaccine platforms to see how we could make vaccines which were better, large doses could be made, and which could be made quickly. They were quickly and in a good way able to convert these platforms for COVID-19. So that helped a lot. Secondly, whatever that was required in a vaccine, which is from going in from animal studies, then to go to what we call phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials, a lot of this was done in sort of parallel rather than in sequence. So individuals realized, and a lot of sort of investment was done, and a lot of red tapeism was got over, because what you would do is you would do one phase study, you would analyze the data, you would then look for funding, you would get money to do the next part of the study. Then you would analyze that data, and then you would again look for funding, show your data to people, and then do the other next part of the study. Because of the urgency, a lot of funding was available. People were able to work in parallel, and that led to decrease in the time as far as vaccine development was concerned. But at every step, two things were really kept in mind. One was safety, and one was efficacy. And in none of the steps was safety and efficacy compromised. And that is what will also be looked at by the regulators. So it's a lot of the safety efficacy data is there in public domain. Many of the vaccine, or most of the vaccines which have now come, their data is published, it's available in peer-reviewed journals, and everyone has looked at it critically. Also, the number of people who have been vaccinated in phase 3 is in many thousands. If you combine all the people who have been vaccinated, or more than 80 to 90,000 people have received the vaccine in phase 3 study in different trials.
Yes.
And the safety signals are very, very strong. None of them have had any serious adverse effect. So I think we can be reassured that vaccines are safe. Our scientists have done a remarkable job. Technology has helped us a lot. And at the same time, we must have faith in our scientists and also in the regulators. All this data is very minutely looked at by the regulatory authorities, whether it be in India, whether it be UK, whether the US or the European Union. All of them will look at every little data, every little bit of it, and then only will they give clearances. These vaccines have now been cleared in many parts of the world. That means the data is robust. They are confident that these vaccines work and they are safe, and we should be reassured by that and not go into sort of rumors which come through social media. So I think we must understand that a lot of effort, money has gone in, because a lot of investment was done by the government and by industry.
Right.
Even before the vaccine got the approvals, the industry and governments invested in making the vaccine. If you look at what happened in various parts of the world, the day the regulatory approval came, the vaccine was rolled out. That means they had already taken that risk of manufacturing these large number of doses and were ready to give it out. Suppose the regulatory approval had not come, all these doses and this investment would have gone to waste. So what the risk was taken was more in investment and cutting red tapeism. There was no risk taken in terms of safety and as far as efficacy was concerned.
Definitely. So while we're all hopeful of the new vaccination drive that is set to be launched next year, what we're all concerned about and what something that has evoked fear is the new strain, sir. So coming back to the new UK strain, and which has led to a lot of concern, a lot of fear among citizens. One question that's largely being asked is, will the vaccines be also effective on the new mutations, on the new strain of the virus that is being reported now in our country as well?
Yes, we must understand that the vaccine acts at various sites. The vaccine produces, one is antibodies, and these antibodies are produced against the spike protein, which is the antigen which is used in the vaccine. But they act at multiple sites of the spike protein, and a variation or mutation at one site will not have a significant effect as far as the efficacy of the vaccine is concerned. The vaccine also causes what we call cell-mediated immunity. It also immunes what we call our T cells. And therefore, the vaccine causes immunity in the human body in multiple manners. And therefore, the mutation will have no significant effect as far as the efficacy or safety of the vaccine is concerned. And we may be assured that even if we have this new variant in our country, the vaccine will still be as effective as in the past.
Okay. Also, sir, due to the mutating nature of this virus, will the coronavirus vaccine, as and when it's available to the citizens, will that also have to be recurring in nature?
So we need to see what is the degree of immunity that the vaccine gives. And that will help us to decide what is the frequency of the vaccination, or do we need to give it very frequently. In influenza, which is another respiratory viral infection, the virus mutates much more rapidly as compared to coronavirus, and therefore the vaccine is an annual vaccine. But in coronavirus, which causes COVID-19, the mutations are much slower, and it seems that we will not have to really frequently vaccinate everyone to give protection. But how long this protection lasts, 1 year, 2 year, or longer, we will only come to know after vaccinating individuals and following them up and seeing what is the level of the antibodies in their body in terms of giving protection even after 1 year or so.
All right. One final question to you, sir. Some studies are suggesting that the new strain, which is spreading faster, is in a way good because in virology, it's believed that better transmission is associated with milder illness. In the Indian context, if we look at it, so far, coronavirus has led to milder illness among people, and that's what has also been, one of the major reasons for the downward trend that we have been able to sustain for the past few months. Do you agree with this view?
So this is a theory by many virologists. It's an old theory which was given many decades ago, that as the virus mutates, it will mutate to becoming less virulent but more infectious, because that is how the virus will survive. And that in that way, you may have a virus which causes more disease, but the disease is milder, and that helps the virus to sustain itself. Because if you have a virus which causes severe disease and everyone who gets the infection dies because of it, the virus will not be able to spread to others. It will lead to the end of the virus. Therefore, the virus changes like that. But although this is a logical way that the virus will evolve, there are certain viral diseases which have not behaved like that, and therefore we need to look at it carefully. But this is a theory that with time, viruses will evolve and become less virulent but more infectious, because that is how they're able to sustain themselves and continue to survive in the host, rather than dying out because because of the fact that if they kill the host itself, then they will not be able to spread from one person to the other.
But given the nature of our population, we must not lower our guard.
Correct. We should not just assume this and based on this lower our guard. I would still say that now with the vaccine around the corner, COVID appropriate behavior becomes all the more important, because we don't want to have a serious illness now when we could have prevented that by COVID appropriate behavior and then got the vaccine later on.
Definitely. All right. So with that, I'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of COVID-19 India Fights Back. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the program today and sharing your perspective on different aspects of the new strain of the virus, coronavirus, and how we must not lower our guard and continue with our battle against coronavirus pandemic. So before I wrap up, I once again want to appeal to all our viewers to stay safe from the ongoing pandemic. Wear your mask whenever you step out of your house. Wash your hands and face regularly. And don't forget to maintain physical distancing, especially now that the new strain of the virus has entered our country. We must be very, very careful and continue to maintain COVID-appropriate behavior. Thank you very much for your time. Just in case you missed the television broadcast, you can also watch it on YouTube, and you can also share your feedback with us. Thank you very much once again.